It's done. There we are recording. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paula, and welcome everyone. My name is Mayor Mike Peterson. This is the City of Cottonwood Heights. It is our work session. It's 5:02, just after 5 p.m., and it's Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. Again, we want to welcome everyone. We do need to excuse two of our council members. Councilmember Bruce and Councilmember Michael are both out of town traveling, so they're excused this evening.
Mayor.
Yes.
I just found out Councilmember Michael is calling in, so she just barely let me know just a second ago, so she doesn't need to be excused. And we're just trying to get her on here.
Okay, but I assume we can go ahead and proceed.
Yes, definitely. I just wanted to
For the minutes,
sure.
note that she will be attending via telephone communication or cell phone communication. Yeah. With that being said, I do need to read a determination concerning an anchor location for this electronic meeting. And that determination states that pursuant to Utah Code annotated 52-4-2074, the city's mayor, as the chair of the city council, hereby determines that conducting the meetings of those bodies on this date at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. It is well recognized that a global pandemic currently exists related to the COVID-19 coronavirus, which has the potential to overwhelm Utah's healthcare system. Therefore, due to the state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the location. Therefore, we are meeting virtually, and I hear that some municipalities and others are starting hybrid meetings in May, so hopefully we're not far behind. With that, Paula, do you see Blake Perez on your invite list? I don't see him here. There he is. Okay, I'd like to again welcome Blake Perez. You've all met him before, and he's presented before, and I've invited Blake to be here to talk about the Central Wasatch Commission to focus on the mountain transportation system, but also 3 or 4 other important components that the commission is working on. And I do this so that you as a council are well informed to give me feedback, so that when I'm voting on things, especially those things that impact our city and those areas directly around us, i.e. the canyons, that you're well informed and you can give me that feedback. So Blake, let me turn it over to you for 10 minutes or so, and then please leave a little bit of time for questions. Blake, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Good to see you all, council. I was here a month ago, a little over a month ago, give you a brief update on where we were at, where the CWC was at with mountain transportation planning process. So my plan today was to give you a quick update on that and some of the other initiatives that the CWC is embarking on. A couple outside of the transportation world, we've got plenty of other great work that we're doing. The Central Wasatch Commission recently closed its call for short-term projects. These are quick, shovel-ready, Forest Service approved and NEPA approved projects that have gone unfunded. And so we just recently closed the call for projects. We received approximately 26 different projects, totaling approximately $300,000. So a lot of different projects, from geology signs, letting people know what the different rocks are, to wag bags, to a larger regional trails master plan. And then there's some other trails work projects as well. This is our second year doing the short-term projects process. Last year, I believe We funded just about 10 projects, and those projects total nearly $100,000. So we have a similar amount of budget, and we're still figuring out how many projects we can fund with the budget that we have. But nonetheless, it's really exciting. It's great to do these projects and get people involved. The second big initiative that the Central Wasatch Commission has going on right now is we recently signed a contract and an interlocal agreement with Utah State University to do a visitor use study. This visitor use study bubbled up from our Stakeholders Council. It was developed and it was brought to the CWC board. A prospectus was developed and brought to the board. The prospectus was approved, and we developed an RFP around this visitor use study. Now, the concept of the visitor use study is to get a good sense of what are the thresholds of the different areas of the Central Wasatch Mountains. So, and what is the range of reasonable change within these mountains? What do visitors expect when they're at the top of a mountain versus at a trailhead? So that will give us a lot of information regarding transportation, regarding management, and regarding investments in different recreation and economic opportunities. We just embarked on that work. We should get an update in June, and then hopefully have phase one wrapped up by the end of the year. We're still working on 2 different phases and how much we can expedite that process. So we're still working out on some of those details, but ideally we would have a full report by the end of this year, November timeframe. What else? Oh, I mentioned the Stakeholder Council. So we have an advisory board made up of 35 stakeholders who are working on different projects, are advising the council, or excuse me, the board on different initiatives. And we are now at the end of approximately half of the Stakeholder Council members. Their first term are expiring in the next couple of months. So we will be doing a call for applications for new Stakeholder Council members. We'll be sharing that with your communications team from the city to blast out. And we will start that process at the end of this month. It'll go throughout the month of May. And we will have approximately, there's 6 openings right now. And we'll have those applications and those folks approved at the July CWC meeting. And then finally, there's actually 2 more things that I would like to mention. The other one I think I may have mentioned last month is the environmental dashboard, which I am so excited about. I think our entire board is really excited about. The environmental dashboard is on track to be completed by the end of this year. And things are really ramping up. We're going to start developing the platform with Esri. So what the environmental dashboard is that it's a really it'll be an online tool for the general public, policymakers, educators to look at the health of these different ecological systems within the Central Wasatch. So this includes flora and fauna, air quality, soil quality, fire hazards, and it'll be real time. So we have data points being fed into this dashboard. And this has been a long time coming, and we're really excited. The board, the CWC board, expedited the process. Last year when we were budgeting, right when COVID was coming down, we had to adjust and split and kind of extend out the dashboard, but it was a priority for the board. And so we expedited that, and we'll have that done by the end of the year. And then finally, before I jump into the transportation stuff, the CWC we received some appropriations this year from the state legislature. We received approximately $150,000 to do 3 different projects. One was that visitor use study, which I talked about a little bit earlier. The second, there were some dollars dedicated to Graffiti Busters. It's a great group. I don't know if you've heard of the Graffiti Busters. They're out on the trails, on the granite boulders, cleaning up graffiti, particularly in Little Cottonwood Canyon, but they're all along the Central Wasatch front there. And then finally, we received appropriations to the bus bypass service. We actually had it last year, but that was cut as COVID was coming down. So the bus bypass service will be implemented next ski season. And the concept behind it is that we'll be working with several police departments to provide for bus escorts during heavy congestion days. So the buses will have a police escort literally driving them past the congestion leading up into the canyons and getting them, to the front of the line. So those are three big projects that we were able to get appropriations on, and excited to get going on them. So that's a lot of the work that we're doing right now. In addition to all of that, we are still working on our mountain transportation system, a parallel effort with the UDOT EIS. I was here about a month ago telling you a little bit more about it, and the mountain transportation system is this much more higher level regional approach that integrates into the current transportation system, considers year-round solutions, and that serves all of the users of the Central Wasatch Mountains. Since that time, since I last met with you, I do believe we shared the evaluation matrix. I believe I sent that over to Tim, and hopefully that was dispersed to the council members for them to work through. In that time, the CWC hosted a mountain transportation system summit with our commissioners in hopes of trying to come to a consensus agreement on a regional mountain transportation system. And at that time, the board wanted to do some more homework and work through the evaluation matrix a little bit more. And the intent was to come to a consensus recommendation to share with UDOT prior to the release of their draft EIS later this summer. And then of course, still following through on the public comment period. So no consensus, no agreements or recommendations were made during the last month. We're still meeting with commissioners individually to get a better sense of the priorities and values and which modes and alternatives best meet those. And then in May, we'll see if the board can come to a consensus on a regional mountain transportation system that they would share with UDOT. That's a quick update of where we're at. I'm more than happy to jump into a Q&A with you all. So thanks for the time again.
So anyone on the council has a question, again, my emphasis here is to keep you as a council well-informed of the many projects that CWC is working on, because budgetarily we contribute. And when we talk about short-term projects, I think we even funded one in Cottonwood Heights last year. I think all of the short-term projects being funded going forward through this next phase are outside the municipalities. They're all in the Forest Service lands, if I understand correctly, right, Blake?
They're all over. I don't know. I don't have a map created. I mean, it literally ended last week, so we know how many and we know the dollar amount. We haven't done a map yet of where everything is, but yeah, they're spread out through our service area, if you will.
Yeah, but thank you for that. And again, of course, mountain transportation system, and this is the challenging one, because at least to this point, it doesn't look like the commissioners have a consensus, but there is general feeling, in my opinion, that no matter what we do, busing is part of the resolution, at least for the short term, and maybe for the long term, we don't know as further analysis takes place. But we'll be talking about that in future meetings. But appreciate feedback from this council as to your perspectives of looking at aerial or cog rail or busing. And of course, at every meeting, and Blake hopefully can verify this, I focus on the importance of the impact and unintended consequences on Wasatch Boulevard and the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon, and the impact on our residents that live just above and below Wasatch. So,
can I speak real quickly?
Please, Doug, go ahead.
Blake, I appreciate this. I have a question on the threshold of the canyons. That's been a big question on my mind with every different mode of transportation. Sometimes it's kind of boasted that we can get this many people up in an hour or whatever. How is that, and when will that have any kind of data that we can look at to see what the true threshold is for the canyon and what that threshold really means?
Yeah, great question, council member. So ideally, we'd have that information in November. And that would give us some really good information prior to a final record of decision from UDOT. If they want that information to take that information into their decision-making process, that's completely up to them. But our commissioners really thought that that was a critical piece to understanding. I want to mention here that this is looking at range of reasonable change in different areas. So it's not necessarily a cap of this number, but where different disbursement is. For example, at a really developed trailhead, White Pine, for example, what is the threshold there? What's the range of reasonable change versus more of a backcountry wilderness experience? What is the range of reasonable change? So we'll have these different ranges available, and you could infer on a threshold or a top number, but that'll give us a really good idea of those numbers and able to plan for that. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. That has a lot to do with, I guess, the experience that you want. I mean, it's good that you've got that spectrum there, because you go from, say, 20 miles an hour now, and can you use a threshold at 50, and do you want to have it at 50? And so I think that's some of it's subjective. A lot of it has to do with the different kind of activities you have.
Yeah.
And so thank you. I know that there's a lot of data to be collected and a lot of perspective that needs to have input on that. And how do you regulate that is my other question, because we all know that there's different ways to do that, and there's pluses and cons to that. And so I look forward to more information on that. But thanks so much, Blake.
Yeah, you're spot on. And it'll dovetail really nicely with Salt Lake City's public utilities watershed management plan that they're starting right now. So those two pieces will certainly help decision makers with that management plan. So you're spot on.
Yeah, and many commissioners really want to have that visitor use study before they make a final or take a final position on the mountain transportation system. It's an important component to many. And so we anxiously await that data. Any other questions of Blake? I know Christine's on by phone. Christine, if you have any questions of Blake, but Scott, anybody?
Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Councilmember Michael her phone has been dropping on the call, but she texted me, and I just wanted to she texted a question she wanted to make sure was asked.
Sure.
I don't know if she can hear and if she wants to ask this question, but here's the question. She's wondering if on the confirmation, or she wants confirmation that the mayor won't vote without the council approving how he will vote on the CWC transportation mode. Anyway, that's the question.
You should be able to talk. I've given her permission to be able to talk.
But it shows she's still muted.
Yeah, she just shows muted.
Yeah, but that's a good question. And again, I want the council well informed, and I assume that we'll have plenty of times as a council to discuss the priority or the feelings of the council before I vote, or even if we have to vote. I don't know. But as far as guaranteeing that I'll vote based upon the consensus of the council, that's my intent. But there's a lot of discussion and meetings before that happens. So hopefully we'll have a chance to discuss more thoroughly. I don't mean to sidestep the answer, but I'm not sure how that will go out. But hopefully we have a good opportunity for the council to review. And I think that the other council members are looking at the same thing to talk to their, or the other mayors are looking at talking to their councils as well. Yeah. So please let me know your questions, your concerns, your positions, if you have one. Because right now, as I met with the CWC yesterday and today, I've taken the position that I recognize buses is critical to solving the transportation issue, at least on the short term. And long term, I'm not prepared from my personal knowledge to take a position on the long-term alternative, which would be cog rail or aerial. I'm still open to comments and concerns raised by constituents and council members. Yeah. Any other comments or questions of Blake?
Thank
If
you.
not, Blake, thank you very much for always being available. And I tell you, no one's worked harder on this subject than Blake has. So thanks, Blake. Appreciate your efforts.
Thanks, Mayor Peterson, and thanks to Cottonwood Heights. Your city, I know, is the city between the canyons. Wasatch Boulevard is a linchpin to a great regional mountain transportation system. So we are grateful for your continued engagement and participation with the CWC, and your city has a really important role at the table. So thanks for sticking with us and being committed. So thanks to Mayor Peterson and the council.
Thanks,
Hi,
Blake.
thanks, Blake. We'll let you go to dinner now or something. Yeah. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Going back to your agenda, we now will review the business meeting agenda that hopefully each of you have a copy of. And after the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have an acknowledgement of a Child Abuse Awareness Month. I think it's something that we have done in the past. We have that once again on our agenda. We will take citizen comments again. And of course, then we have public comment after citizen comment regarding the gravel pit development to try and continue to give our public an opportunity to share their thoughts and ideas. We have two staff quarterly reports, the monthly financial report with Scott Jurgis, and we have a UFA report and fireworks restrictions because summer is almost here with Assistant Chief Riley Pilgrim. And we have two action items. One is the reappointment of individuals to our Architectural Review Commission. Tim, do you want to talk about that at all, or?
Yes, these are two individuals that have served and are very well qualified, do a good job. This would be for a 2-year term, and it's Scott Henriksen and Niles Valentiner. And those two are both architects, and we're just grateful that they're on this, on doing the work that they're doing and service that they're doing. So we're recommending approval.
Yes, Niels Valentiner and
Did I say it wrong?
Niles. Yeah.
Yeah, Niels
Yeah,
Valentiner.
both have been in the community for many years and very active and involved. Very appreciative of their service. Then item 7.2 is a resolution accepting a request for indemnification. Do we want to say anything now about that, Shane, at all? Anyway, that'll be dealt with as an action item and discuss other area or other times.
Mayor?
Yeah.
I did have a request, perhaps maybe before we do that, either Tim or possibly Shane, just give a very brief overview of what the qualified immunity actually means as in a general sense. There seems to be some confusion about that. I saw a couple of discussions on social media. Maybe it'd be worth taking 30 seconds or a minute to just kind of describe what that means, if you feel that it's appropriate.
Yeah, and it's well defined on the agenda too, yeah.
This situation does not involve qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is a judicially constructed legal principle. It was originated by the U.S. Supreme Court. that grants governmental officials certain immunities from civil suits unless it's shown that the official clearly violated what is generally described as generally established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. And lately, I looked at this yesterday, lately, some states, a few states, maybe 3, 4 states, I believe, have legislatively, their state legislatures have legislatively limited the availability of qualified immunity in their states. But to my knowledge, that has not occurred in Utah. But this situation that is encompassed by resolution 2021-16 that will be considered by the City Council later this evening does not involve qualified immunity. What it does involve is a Utah state statute. It's an act, a series of statutes called the Governmental Immunity Act of Utah. And what that act says, and it's found at Title 63G, Chapter 7 of the Utah Code, it says that Utah's governmental bodies, which includes the city, it includes the state, it includes counties, are obligated to provide defense and indemnity to their employees who are sued based on the employee's actions which occur within the course and scope of the employee's employment by the public entity. And so the language in the Governmental Immunity Act I'm reading from 63G-7-902, Section 1. It says, in pertinent part, a governmental entity shall defend any action, shall is a mandatory word, brought against its employees arising from an act or omission occurring during the performance of the employee's duties within the scope of the employee's employment or under color of authority. And so, and then this statute goes on to provide that if a governmental employee gets sued for acts that are, allegedly within the course and scope of the employment, why then the employee has the right to submit a request for indemnification to the governmental entity. And the governmental entity then, the governing body of the governmental entity then has to either accept or reject that request within a fairly limited period of time. The acceptance, however, can be with what's generally called a reservation of rights. And that means that the governmental entity agrees to defend and indemnify the employee. But if the governmental entity subsequently determines that the actions that are being complained of in the lawsuit were actually not within the course and scope of the employee's employment, why then the defense and indemnity can be limited or withdrawn. And so the governmental entities get sued all the time. The city usually has had one or more lawsuits pending at any particular time. And many of those involve situations where the complainant is alleging that a city employee has done something wrong. And so in those situations, the city employee makes the request for defense and indemnity, and the city council, to my knowledge, to my recollection, I think that the city has granted or accepted that request for defense and indemnity every time, often, usually, maybe always, with a reservation of rights. At the same time, the city submits the claim to its insurer, who then makes a coverage assessment and determines if the insurer should jump in and actually pay for the defense costs and any settlement costs or judgment costs. So it's just kind of the nature of operating a governmental entity There are always going to be things that happen. People will slip and fall on sidewalks. They will be angry that they got arrested by the police. No matter how hard we try, there will be disputes. And this is how they are handled under the Governmental Immunity Act in tandem with the city's insurance coverage. So that is what is happening tonight. We have had a lawsuit filed that an employee alleges concerns the course and scope of employment. And so that is coming before the council tonight for decision on whether immunity or indemnity will be granted. If you have questions, I'm happy to entertain them, but that's kind of a thumbnail sketch of this area. In saying that, I don't want to say that, you know, the city is a loose cannon, or we have more than our share of lawsuits. In fact, I think we have much less than our share of lawsuits, but it is something that happens, and this is how they're dealt with.
I appreciate it. I don't know that I had drawn that distinction before, that there was a differentiation, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, qualified immunity is a judicial construct of immunity, and but here we're dealing with a specific statutory right to defense and immunity in the state of Utah.
And I appreciate the description on the agenda as well that describes that briefly for anyone's reference. And anyway, that's an item that's coming up in our next meeting. So that's a little introduction to prepare yourselves. And if you have further questions, you know, you can do it now or during our business meeting. Okay, then we have a consent calendar item as well in our business meeting, and then that would be it. Coming back to our work session, we have a couple of staff reports, and we need to try and be through by 6:30 if possible, because we do have a closed session for a moment. So the first item is 2021. We have municipal elections this year. We have 2 council seats and a mayoral seat that is open this year for those who are interested. Again, myself, it's been announced informally, but I'll not be running for re-election for personal reasons. And but then we have again that opportunity for people to make a declaration to run. But in 2018, we looked at a change in how we handle our elections, and we approved ranked choice voting. But that was for that election. We were not able to implement that because of the county clerk's inability to support that method that we had chosen. But it's been brought up again to consider it for this year's election. And so Scott, I know, has done a lot of research on it. We also have Corey Holdaway here to answer some questions, because the council needs to take a position to either continue with the concept of ranked choice voting as we talked about previously, or hold. So Scott, you want to go first, and then we'll let Corey have a few comments here in a minute.
Sure, let me get myself unmuted. Yeah, I actually had a discussion with a number of citizens last night on this. But very briefly, let me share my screen. Ranked choice voting was conducted 2 years ago in Payson and Vineyard. One of the things that I did was I called down and talked to the elections clerk there, and I got a copy of their ballot. One of the concerns that comes up commonly with people is that the ballots are hard to understand, or they're confusing, or it will make it harder for people to vote. And so I figured the best way to find out, you know, how that was is to just show everybody a copy of an actual ballot. This was used 2 years ago in Payson, as you can note from the date and the time, with each candidate listed going down, and then let's zoom that in just a little bit. And then going across the top, you can choose your first preference, second preference, third preference, or fourth preference. That's usually the way these are titled. It can sometimes be first choice or first option, something like that. That is the way typically a ranked choice ballot will look. The reason I became interested in it was that it provides a method, especially when you're electing people from districts such as we do here in Cottonwood Heights, of conducting a primary election and a general election on a single ballot. Everyone puts down their first choice, second choice, up to as many as, in this case, 5, however many candidates there are. And you can immediately tabulate who you go through. You'll count out there. Okay. I'm sorry. I missed my, I lost my sharing my screen. I'm looking for yeah. Basically what happens is, as the votes are tabulated, everybody's first choice gets tabulated. If someone gets 50%, they're elected, just like it is now. That's always the case. If for whatever reason that does not occur, whoever has the least number of votes is eliminated from the ballot, and all of those ballots get moved over to the second choice for those voters. And you can continue to do that until someone gets to a majority. There was the city posted a video describing how that happens. You can go to the there we go. You can go to the Utah County's website. I've got that here really quick, and look at their election results from 19. Of those 5 people that were on there, this is actually a graphical description on what happened in that election. The first round, Doug here got a lot of votes, but he did not get enough to get to this line, which was the threshold to win. And so they went in round 2, they eliminated Mr. Pinkman, and they added, you see a little bit of pink there, they added a little bit onto each of those. Those are people who voted first for Scott Pinkman, but second for either Doug, Linda, Brian, or I think that's Mary. Again, no one had a majority, so they went and did that again, where they eliminated Mary, and that case, her votes then were put out by the next favorite choice of the voter, and you got to this situation. Again, still no one had a majority, so they went through and they eliminated Brian, and at that point, you can see that Doug got enough to get over the majority. That's how it works. It tends to work very well in a lot of situations. I've read a lot of things on it. There's a lot of conjecture of things that people think that it does. I don't know that I've found hard evidence that it accomplishes much of that, but some of those are subject to opinion. But what I've kind of come to a conclusion is in Cottonwood Heights way of voting, where we're voting our council people by district and our mayor as a single seat, it certainly would work. It certainly could eliminate a primary election. That would reduce the campaign season by a number of months. It would reduce the cost probably to the candidates. It would probably reduce the cost to the city, because you'd only be running the one election. We would probably buffer that with some education and outreach to the citizens because we need to let them know that that's what we were doing. I don't see that there's a distinct negative from an understanding and a comprehension standpoint. People tend to understand it actually fairly well. Santa Fe and New Mexico ran it for their mayoral election in 2018. And they had some people doing exit polls. This pie chart with the dark blue and the light purple showing how many people decided that the way the ballot was laid out was not confusing or not at all confusing, where you had about 15% that said it was somewhat or a little bit confusing. That goes to the, again, one of the concerns, well, it may be confusing for the electorate. I don't know that that's the case. Most of the people, there's another, here's another study that was done that took over a number of cities: San Francisco, Tacoma Park, Cary, Portland, Santa Fe, that asked people, how well they understood it. You have 78, 84, 94. And the second column being the number of people who actually preferred it over the old system and whether they understood the ranking things. I think shortening the election season, the campaign season, would be a benefit from a cost and just general perspective. Is that enough by itself to change the way that we've done our voting for years and that people are used to? That's certainly a subjective call that we need to make. But I had a number of questions and comments on a webinar that I hosted last night. People had some very good points, but I think it's certainly open for discussion. Some of the claims that ranked choice voting do, I don't know that I don't certainly subscribe to them all. I have been looking for, is there some damage that it would do or some problem that it would cause? I am not seeing that either. So I hope that's kind of a brief synopsis. I spent an hour and a half on it last night. We certainly don't have that time tonight, but I'd certainly entertain questions from the council, and also, open that up to anybody who's listening. If they've got a question or comment or would like to chat at it, I'm certainly available, over the next 2 weeks before we have to make that decision for discussion. I would note that under the statute in the state of Utah, if we stay with the system that we currently have, the filing period for candidates is June 1st through the 7th. If we opt to move to an RCV, a ranked choice voting scenario, the filing dates change and they're moved back to August 10th to the 17th, I believe. And that could be a significant difference. That could be a significant change in all, either having a primary on August 10th for people that are in the primary election, or you're having candidates file for a general election at that time. That's the biggest difference that I see, is having people filing in summer rather than I guess late summer rather than early summer.
Okay, I know time's short, but and I have a couple of questions. I'm going to throw out my questions and let Corey let you also a few comments. Again, as a mayor, I'm conceptually in favor of it. As we went through it, Utah League of Cities and Towns a couple of years ago, and I found it to be quite enticing to apply it to our city. I wish we would have dealt with this last fall so we could have announced it at the beginning of this year rather than literally get into the year with a lot of things already being determined and people already campaigning and making plans, all that stuff. So that concerns me. Also, the other concern I have, and Scott, you answered this partly by looking at Portland and Santa Fe and those others, and showed a high percentage of people who said that it was not confusing. They understood. I've tried to explain it to a few people over the last few days, and I probably don't do do it justice like you have done, but I sense some confusion. And my concern, again, at this point is with our demographics, and I'm one of the people, so I can talk about myself, is that seniors have a hard time dealing with change, as one question. And two, do we have enough time with all of the other issues in our city of making sure we've educated our public well enough to make this effective? So those are my couple concerns, questions. Conceptually, I like it. I'm just concerned about timing and education and so on. So Corey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. And let me just address your last question or your last point. Interestingly enough, in Utah County, where the county clerk embraced RCV, they went out to a number of senior centers, and without any instructions at all to that senior center, they put out a ranked choice voting ballot for their favorite national parks in Utah. And they asked the seniors in the senior center to cast their vote, and far and away, and this is certainly anecdotal, but it is I think it represents what likely is going to be the case. There was little or no misunderstanding among the group. Again, there was no other than the instructions on the ballot to rank the different national parks according to preference, and in the different columns. That was the instruction, and there was little or no misunderstanding with that. The other point I just want to make with you, and I know time is short, is 2 years ago, as you said, Cottonwood Heights was interested. The county election office didn't have the equipment at the time, and now they do. Unfortunately, that information about the equipment and their ability to provide a ranked choice voting election didn't come out from the county clerk's office until March, after they had gotten the new equipment, tested it, and felt comfortable that they could run an RCV election. Within Salt Lake County, there are a number of other cities that are interested. Riverton has committed to doing it. Bluffdale has committed to doing it. Salt Lake City, interestingly enough, is entertaining it tonight as an action item.
Sandy City's talking about tonight as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Mill Creek as well, Sandy City. So there are a number of cities across Salt Lake County since the clerk's office has come out and said that they can administer it. And I think, frankly, Councilman Bracken spelled out the value of it. It's cost for the city. You eliminate the need for a primary election. You hit the 50% majority always in terms of who you're electing. And the campaign season is compressed. Instead of having a campaign running for 6 months through a city, the filing deadline is moved to August. You've got 3 months, and you make your case. And the type of elections, I think, are much more collegial in nature in terms of just, you don't want to offend somebody that is running somebody's delegates or elections folks in jeopardy of possibly eliminating their second place vote. So you're talking about issues rather than personalities. So I know time is short. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Corey, and appreciate that. And again, thanks to Scott for, you, Councilman Bracken, you have spent a lot of time in preparing and doing your homework, as you always do. Councilman Peterson, any questions? You've kind of answered my question, and I'll be open to dialoguing with constituents between now and next couple of weeks as well. But to Councilor Peterson or Councilor Michael, if you have any comments, if you want to send those to us.
Is Councilperson Michael, is she available? She said she's on her phone. Christine, can you?
I
Can you
think she's on the phone.
hear our conversation?
She may want to text us something, but if not, Councilor Peterson, any questions, comments?
Corey, I have a quick question. Some of the discussions that we've had are concerning trying to learn enough about multiple candidates. I mean, many people, especially during this time of the year, are pretty busy with family and getting ready for school and different things like that. I love the idea of compressing this. The question is first of all, in my election, the average age of the voter was 70 years old. I know that I have parents that are closer to 90 than they are 80 now.
Oh, they're my age.
Sometimes programming the VCR is not their greatest feat. I'm concerned not so much about the A, B, C, D, or number 1, 2, 3, 4, but what happens to those votes? You know what I mean? Like Scott showed us. Pinkham, not Pinkham, but funny, he went on the top and he was pink. It was very clear where those votes went. I think some of that education that Mayor and I were talking about is imperative to try to get that out there. And because it is new, even though I think it has merits that are very commendable, trying to get that information out to those that may not be engaged like the people that are in this conversation are right now. That is some of what concerns some of the people that we've spoken to. The other thing that's mentioned is sometimes, even though it's very arduous to campaign from when you file, we've already had people put out signs already 2 months before the actual filing date would be if we did our traditional voting. So the question is, can they learn enough in that period of time about those candidates? And can they learn enough? And maybe somebody just needs to know really strongly about 3 candidates. When you get down to that 3, 4, 5, depending on the number of candidates that actually run, can they understand that well enough? And can they understand how their vote will be treated once they go? It's easy to see the first one drop out. That's pretty clear that that one did not make that cut. But as you get deeper and deeper to get to that 50% threshold, there are some questions, and that's where the education would probably be the most important thing. I think we do not want to lose any voters in this, and that's paramount as well, because that's extremely important. When we're struggling sometimes in that 40%. I know in some elections that's commendable. I would love, obviously, to have more voters, period. I'd love to have informed voters too. I know that's very difficult to mandate. You basically have the right to vote. You don't have the right to really study about those candidates. So those are just some of the concerns. Education, number one, lack of fear, because the first time I heard about this, I was a little bit skeptical. The more I learned about it, I understood it, but I don't know that everyone will be able to take the time and effort to do this. And that's just some of my feedback that I've had from other people. And it is legitimate concern to many people.
I'll just make a couple of comments, Councilman. The first one is the education. I absolutely agree with you. That's paramount in terms of informing the citizenry about the election. Where we have done it in other cities, in Payson and Vineyard, there was $250,000 set aside prior to 2018. Of that $250,000, there's $200,000 still left for that purpose, specifically for cities that want to use it. I would also say that the money that you save by avoiding a primary election could also be put into to that education portion. The other point that I want to make is related to a primary election versus a general election. As we all know, more people vote in November than they do in a primary election. So I would submit that you're going to get a better representation of who is voting and how many vote in general election in November than you would in a primary election, trying to divide and sift who's going to go forward in the general. And then I've got something else written here, and I can't read my writing. My partner would laugh about that. At any rate, those are the two of the main points that I want to make with this. Certainly, Cottonwood Heights is unique because you've got set districts, one winner, and it'd be very, very easy to implement this. The challenge that you got, and I recognize it, is the compressed time that you have to make that decision. And certainly, I'm sure you'll do what you feel like is in the best interest of the voter.
Mayor? Oh,
Yes, Tim, go ahead, Tim.
I had one request really, but Corey, would you send me an email just after this? I have one question that was raised by a constituent yesterday. It was a very good one. You may be a source for it. I know I have your email somewhere, but if you'd send me another one just after this, I'd like to touch base with you on. And it goes to that tabulation question.
Happy to do it.
Mayor?
Go ahead, Tim. Yeah.
Councilmember Michael is having a difficult time being able to speak where she's on her phone. She's here. But one of the points she wanted, or one of the questions or points, is she wanted to ask what the percent of people that vote in a primary on a non-presidential year, and if it's low, that primary is a bit of a farce. And I think that's already, Corey's already talked a little bit about that. And then also the point that if people want to serve, they'll knock on doors, get mailers out, have websites, and have opportunities to educate people. So those are two things that Councilmember Michael wanted me to reiterate in this.
I remembered the last point I wanted to make, if it's all right, if I could.
Go ahead.
Because we have a vote by mail ballot, the opportunity to educate yourself is much different than going into a booth and having to make those selections. So I would submit that having that to be able to reference in terms of ranking who you want to choose helps with the education factor as well.
No, and I appreciate the point that Councilor Michael brought up too, as far as that the constituents, you know, and you brought up too, Corey, about the voter, the number of voters in November election compared to a primary is substantially more. And I think there's a lot of people who really focus on that, and they focus based upon what time frame is presented to them to adapt to. And so I think there's good points. And again, I am for it personally. I just want to raise my comfort level, which has been done somewhat tonight, as far as the opportunity to educate our public and make sure that this is something that they can go into having confidence to understand how it works, because it's definitely has some pluses. Tim, you have no comment?
Yeah, well, I guess just a process comment. What we would need tonight is council's direction in this meeting to get this placed on the May 4th council meeting, on the business meeting, for a resolution to move forward with this. We have to have everything filed to the state by May 10th if this is the direction that we're going to go. So we need that direction. I also want to say, appreciate Paula Melger has really been tracking this, has kept me educated on the processes, has been in meetings with the county, has really pushed to understand things with the county and where they're at with the equipment. So if Paul has anything to add, I just appreciate what she's done and keeping me informed, and the council as well.
No, I think that's a good point. And I know Paul is correspondence in our packet gives us some good insight and prepares us for this meeting as well. So yeah, Paul, we appreciate that. Scott, she's been putting up with me quite a bit too. So well, she should get a raise for that. But
to the question that Councilmember Michael brought up, I did look actually at the primary for 2 years ago in Council District 1 in Cottonwood Heights. The primary had 1,200 or so votes cast. The general election had about 2,000. So there was a better than 50% increase between the two. That's
Yeah,
That's just point of information.
yeah.
And
Good points.
Mayor, can I add just 2 points if you allow me?
Absolutely. Go right ahead, Paul. You deserve the right to do that.
Thank you. Just really quick. So not having a primary and having a straight on RCV election allows candidates also not to fight so much between themselves, but actually spend more time exposing what issues they are trying to address with the city or goals that they have for the city. And I think that's one of the things I like, because sometimes you get lost in the fight between the candidates. It's nice to know what the issues are really that they want to address. And then the second point is that the lieutenant governor also has funds to give to cities for education purposes. And I think that's important. And if we follow the RCV, if that's what the council decides to have a RCV election, then those funds will become available and will meet with us and let us know what's available to us.
Thank you, Paula. And I think, Corey, you mentioned those funds, and there's what, up to 200,000 you said is available, yeah?
Yeah, there's 200,000 statewide.
Yeah. Doug, you had another comment, I think.
I was just gonna say real quickly is I actually had individuals that after the primary, I was canvassing and they said, "Oh, I've got the votes for the general had not been put out yet." They said, "Oh yeah, I've got the ballot sitting on my kitchen counter." They had the primary that they had lost track of. And so it's confusing to some people. Life gets pretty busy and they just, they completely miss the primary. I hope they did vote in the general, but I think that informing as many people as we can, as quickly as we can, because I wish, like I say, I wish we had have done prepared for this last year. I know some cities actually vote to choose whether they do ranked choice voting. I noticed a number of them did vote so that they would have a voice whether they did. And I think they'd have to be even educated to vote if they did have a vote. So that I just wanted to mention that there is confusion with a primary and a general, where this would eliminate some of that, and November by far is the lion's share of the voters.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Doug, Corey, Scott, Paula, all of you. Tim,
Thank you, Mayor.
to your question as far as direction for the next agenda in May, I'm interpreting from this conversation that we would want it on the agenda to be considered for action. And between now and then, like myself, I'll continue to do more research. Again, conceptually, I just want to have a comfort level as far as some of those concerns. Councilor Peterson, I obviously has some questions. Scott, I know at least he's got one more, and he's gonna work with Corey. And I think my understanding from Councilor Michael that she would like to see it on, and I understand Councilor Bruce, if I remember, I think I've heard that she would like to see it on. So I think we want to see it on there for consideration. Obviously, each council member still has the right to vote at that time as to their preference to proceed or not. Is that fair, everyone? Councilor Bracken, Councilor Peterson?
Yeah, it should at least be on for a vote,
Yeah,
one way or the other.
yep. Okay, everybody agree? All right, Corey, thank you very much and appreciate your willingness to wait around for this and to share your expertise. It's always.
Thank you, Mayor.
Take care. We
Thanks.
won't make you stay around if you'd like to leave.
Thanks, Corey and Scott.
All right, item number B on our staff reports is the Arts Council's proposed sculpture. So Paula, do you want to introduce this? Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So back in November, the Arts Council issued an RFP to select an artist to sculpt, to design a concept of a tree for the city. And we received 2, I believe, RFPs. And we considered them, we interviewed the artists, and some of the things we we based our selection on was design, layout, architecture, considerations, safety, durability, cost, and we gave preference for the use of sustainable materials. After interviewing the artists, we've selected the council. The Arts Council selected Mellon Pearson, who seemed to be very willing and open to work with the Arts Council in developing the tree concept. And do you want to add anything to that? And Council Member Peterson too, he sits on the Arts Council and represents us very well there. So.
Well, Ann Etchell, I know you're the staff person that's liaison as well, and Councilor Peterson, comments, thoughts regarding this proposal?
And would you like to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Council Peterson, go ahead.
You know, we have some amazing people in the Arts Council. They've been through many challenges with COVID, obviously, as any committees would, but they're always moving forward and trying to be productive, even when they can't do many of the things that they normally do. This year, they're excited because they're gearing up for everything from Matilda to different things like that. Auditions, everything, the different Christmas Santa Claus videos that they had as far as Zooms were amazing. They wanted to have, and this art piece will be outside of City Hall. They wanted to represent, obviously we're the city's between the canyon, but we are Cottonwood Heights. And so they've chosen to do, we can't call it a sculpture, it's an art piece because sculpture is a little bit different a fabrication technique, but it's going to be very interesting. Everything is done with reclaimed iron. I look very forward to it. I don't know that, Anne, if we even have a rendering type thing of this, but it's going to be exciting to see the culmination of this. We had an interview with the artist of varying artists. I know that the very, very much conceptual on the left. There's kind of a representation, obviously, of something similar to on the right. But they're excited. There's more to it than what you see, obviously. And so they're kind of excited about the barrier that'll be around it, that'll kind of encircle around it, and where it's going to be placed. I hope it draws some definite interest, and it's the Arts Council is excited about what this project will bring to the city. And if you would like to.
So the way the tree will, the things it will symbolize is the leaves are the blooming buds with the leaves will be the growing city. The roots are a connection of the past and foundation to build upon, and the branches are the community and the diversity, because not one branch is the same. There is a heart, and there'll be a solar power going in this. The tree stands about 12 feet in height. It will be in a cement casing where they might even come up about a foot where you can sit around it. It will be smooth and safe. That was one of the criteria of making sure that with the high school across the street and just anybody that they can touch it, and the safety on that. The leaves will not be as big. This one on the other side is just an example of what it will look like. It will oxidize to a patina eventually. It'll take over time, and it will look like that. The leaves are a little smaller than that. The Arts Council is very excited to move forward with this opportunity. Their budget will allow them to move forward. Also the Historic Committee is excited. So these are two community groups that you have within the city that are very excited. The Historic feels that they can add to this maybe later on, if it allows for some monuments around it and some history around it about the roots and connection of the people. So it's they are very excited and would just love to move forward. The artist is well known. He has artwork throughout the states and even the world. He's been doing art for over 27 to 30 years and has had actually some famous people buy his art. Very easy to find out all this information if you just Google his name. I'm excited to even work with this artist.
I know time is short, but a couple of questions and I'll open up to others as well. So I'm always concerned about vandalism because well, first of all, let me publicly say I'm absolutely supportive of whatever we can bring art structures and stuff to our plaza and to our city and the building and outside. That's been a highlight of some of the things we've done in the past. And but I'm concerned about vandalism. So how is this protected? Is it protected or does it need to be protected?
Well, Councilman Peterson might be able to talk a little bit more about the metal. He seems to understand this type of metal that we're using. I think on anything we do, even City Hall can get vandalized. I don't know if there is any way to protect it. Anything we put out outside in the plaza area could be vandalized. The leaves will be up high enough, and the branches we've asked to put up high enough so the kids can't climb up on it or grab it or hang off of it. That was one of the artist will come and do some measurements out there and make sure that when it is done, that they can't even step up on it and grab one of the branches, which can help.
Second of all, the description you gave as far as to what the meaning behind the piece is with respect to the branches, the diversity, etc. Will there be some plaque or something that'll describe that meaning on the foundation?
We have not discussed that yet, and actually I think they did mention that, and that's something I think that Arts Council will come in later on and put there. Once it's in, we can figure out how, or once we get the contract with them and figure out how his base goes in, then we can figure out a plaque. Yeah.
That's also part of what the historic committee wanted to do is add some plaques.
Yeah, and the historic had stuff going around it with plaques, but yeah, I know the Arts Council would love to have something there saying it was brought down by them too. And then we come up with the Arts Council in the city and come up with the perfect meaning. There's been quite a few things floating around, but I love that how much everything that has floated around on the meaning has just been amazing to hear.
Yeah, no, exciting. Councilor Peterson, go ahead.
Thank you for mentioning those concerns. Each one of those concerns were addressed. Everything from the longevity of this, because it will be welded pieces by many pieces. That was some of my concerns about longevity. There is going to be warranty on it for, I believe, 10 years, but he's had many out longer than that. This sketch on the left is not representative of exactly what I feel it's going to look like. I've seen many of his pieces. This is just one that we see on the right, but many of the other pieces, he has a certain style about him, even though each art is a different feel and maybe different technique. But for the most part, we talked about possible attractive nuisance and also about the possibility of vandalism and different things. The concept of having the concrete barrier around it is part of that, is to protect it. We're talking about also when you mentioned a little bit about the opportunity, a plaque that would tell and explain some of the characteristics of the tree and what it means, that was definitely just spoken about. Now, whether that happens immediately or shortly after, when the historic committee will have different things around the perimeter of this. And so there are different things that have been spoken about, and each one of the concerns we believe has been met. Now, we cannot guarantee every part of what people can do in vandalism, but they've definitely addressed many of those situations of the best that we can in a art piece that will be outside.
Yeah.
And as far as the lighting and different things like that.
Let Councilman Peterson finish. Yeah.
Well.
Somebody,
he did say that 80% of it will be recycled material or more. If you can make it more, it will happen.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned that too. So that's great. How about location on the plaza? Is this location been selected?
Yes. It is on the northeast corner of City Hall. There's a piece of grass out there. I can share my screen and show you if you want. I have a picture of it.
Northeast corner of the plaza or of City Hall?
Of the plaza at City Hall.
Yeah, okay, out front. Okay, no, that's sufficient. Then generally, and we can kind of look where that is. Yeah. No, I mean, conceptually, I'm excited for it, and I appreciate Councilor Peterson's involvement. I wish Councilman Shelton was here, because he would have been jumping up and down and applauding, because this is his.
He's a attendee at the meeting.
Oh, is he?
Mayor.
Oh, okay. Well, if he's an attendee, then this is right up his alley. So
I can't tell if he's jumping up or down or not, but he's.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. All right. Other comments, questions of staff regarding this direction? I think it's outstanding. Yeah.
I will just ask Ann to maybe show me. I would be interested in maybe having you pop out and show me exactly where it's going to go, because I'm not completely clear, but we can do that whenever.
And just,
same here. Yeah.
I believe it's not on the north. That would put it on the opposite side of Bengal Boulevard, which it's in one of the areas that is, I believe, on the east, which would be the southeast. Is that right, Ann? I'm looking out the window right now and seeing some of the areas out here, and I believe that's where it's going to be.
I'm sorry, it's over by the flagpole. Do you want me to share my screen real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Put it up real quick.
Mayor, while Ann does that, let me just make sure that I give credit is due to. Whitney, the chair, and Laura Garcia, the secretary for the Arts Council, were so essential and helpful through the RFP process. I would feel bad if they weren't mentioned.
Oh, no, thank you for doing that.
Yes, and also our leader, Tim Tingy, has given us really good guidance through the process. So I appreciate him too. Thank you.
No, yeah, and please pass on our appreciation to their efforts and all that they do. I think, again, I've been on record many times of my appreciation, just having citizen involvement in our committees. There's a historic committee, which I worked with for years, and of course the Arts Council, Parks, Trails, and Open Space, and ARC, all of them. It's imperative that we have our citizens involved. This is a perfect example of a result they can create. So Ann, where? Right there?
Sorry, yeah, so it's south, so that'd be southeast corner. And so in the grassy area here, we'd be tearing the grass and.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of the area. Now, I mean, it can change if we get it out there and we walk around with the artist and Tim and Paula, and we look and maybe there's somewhere better, but that was the area that we'd kind of looked at first.
No, we can watch.
That helps a lot. Thank you.
We can look at it from the council chambers. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you bringing that to us, and let us know the other things that are somewhat unique going on in our city that are very positive. We need to move on. We have a little bit of time, and we need to have a closed session here in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So we do have a gravel pit discussion item, which is next, item C. And again, we have a commitment to some council members. We will not talking about the what do we call the sleds issues or the geotechnical issues at this time. We'll be doing that later. So this is other items. So Mike, do you want to introduce this?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I know we're short on time. I don't, outside of the sleds discussion, have a lot of new information, but I do want to touch on an update that's even more recent than the memo that was sent out last Friday regarding the site access on the northern side. We've gone back with the developer and found a solution that we feel is very similar to what was proposed originally, but also resolve some of the outstanding concerns we had with limiting stops in some directions, but not all. So I'm going to just spend the next couple minutes showing that, and then we can go from there. And I do plan to give a general overview of this preceding the public comment tonight as well. So this, I'm going to start here. This is the reconfigured intersection design, preliminary design, I would say, that we've met with the applicant on and gotten some feedback from Holiday City staff on, and feel that this resolves the concerns while maintaining safe and effective levels of service in terms of traffic impact.
Could you zoom that in just one spot?
Yeah, I'll go here. So now north is up now, so it rotated a little, but this is a zoomed in version of it. So previously, the entrance and exit to the project site was essentially a straight line connecting into the existing Wasatch Boulevard that led up into Holiday City. So this whole intersection was reconfigured slightly to straighten out that access point to allow more of a straight drive to and from Wasatch Boulevard. The new configuration here does not modify the existing access point there, that Wasatch Boulevard, at all, and instead creates a drive access or a branching road. It will be a public street, a full road, an intersection point that just that accesses onto the existing Wasatch Boulevard. So what this does in terms of traffic patterns is it allows traffic patterns to remain largely unchanged from what they are today, coming to and from the area to the north in Holiday City. It adds one stop sign rather than two or the three that we originally recommended, but one stop sign that will affect traffic leaving the project site. Other than that, it would be a free right turn in to the project site, a stop controlled right and left turn out of the project site, and then some sort of middle turn lane in the existing Wasatch Boulevard that would just need to wait for traffic to turn from the north into the project site. But traffic from SR 190 to and from Wasatch Boulevard in Holiday City will flow like it does today.
This is 1,000 times better.
So this, yeah, so we feel this addresses we're taking public comment tonight, and I don't know how much we'll hear at the council, but the hundreds, I think I'm not exaggerating too much when I say that we received at Planning Commission, many of which were concerned about this exact thing and impeding traffic flow or causing congestion here. It's been studied by the project traffic engineer. It does not create any unsafe traffic conditions. It works properly. This obviously will be fully designed and studied as part of the development of phase one of this project. But conceptually, this is where we've settled. The feedback we got from Holiday staff was positive. I believe it was supportive of this. And again, resolves their concerns of making sure that traffic to and from Holiday City flows undisturbed. I do want to clarify, because we've heard this as well. Gun Club Road is listed here. This project does not propose any direct access onto Gun Club Road. The only access being added by this project is this one right here that we're looking at, this intersection. So there's no access onto Gun Club Road to and from this project. So that's really the only update I have. And again, this is an updated site plan just showing our intention and what we're recommending as a requirement to the temporary access on the south side of the property by SR 190. This box right here is the ski rental shop. So this is that existing driveway that is usable today. The property owner, the developer, has a right to use that access. And this will be the requirement here, is this will act as a regular secondary access point until such time when the southern gravel pit property is fully developed and this is likely replaced by a permanent intersection. Again, this intersection here will go through the UDOT permitting process as part of the implementation and future construction of these phases down here. But that was another point that we wanted to clarify for concerned residents of Holiday City, that there is a secondary access point here that will be able to be utilized.
Mike, a quick question and we'll open it up. We have just a minute.
Yep.
Like I agree with Scott, based upon what I heard from Holiday City and previous discussion, that's 1,000% better. My question is, there was discussion about doing something temporary. So is this more of a permanent recommendation going forward, or is this something that's on the temporary and would be reevaluated later as the whole gravel pit's developed, or do you feel this is more long-term?
So this configuration performs more than adequately to service this entire development.
Good.
So
Okay.
as long as this 20-acre development exists, this intersection will serve it. What we do want to do with Holiday City collaboratively is, look at this area and focus on this area as part of their Wasatch Boulevard master plan that they're about to begin, because we do want to understand the impacts to this intersection in particular, but this entire area when the full gravel pit to the south also begins development. And at that time, we may need to revisit this to accommodate the anticipated traffic congestion or development intensity that ends up on that site. We don't know though, because that site will also have access points onto SR 190. But basically what we want to do now is reserve the right to revisit this with Holiday City to anticipate any future impact of that larger development to the south. So this, I would say, this could act as a permanent solution. It is designed to support that, but we do want to look at it again to see if it's the best, very long-term solution when that southern development comes on.
Okay, makes sense.
I believe there's probably going to be a signalized intersection somewhere on the the southern end. Is that correct, Mike?
We think so. We think, and this is just thinking right now, but we anticipate a full intersection and then two, more limited intersections there. So up to 3 along that southern piece.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is if there's another signalized intersection that's more convenient to that whole section, that's going to draw a lot of the traffic that would otherwise be turning left or getting to try to go to the freeway. And so that would alleviate a lot of pressure off of this end.
Yeah, Matt Shipp has looked at this. I know he's not here tonight, but he agrees that this is a good solution for now. It resolves some of the concerns we had with some of the confusion of limiting stops in some directions, but not all. So we're supportive of this. The applicant has indicated their willingness. As you can see, they've drawn up a plan, and we believe Holiday City is as well.
Mike, one other question. Did we get any definitive answers on how much, if any, more development will be done in the north on the Holiday subdivision that's up there?
No, I don't have any answers for you there. I am happy to follow up and ask Holiday City if they have any anticipated developments there.
Okay, thank you.
I think that also will probably be covered in their master plan. That will look at land use and future development there. So if it's long range, looking at long range developments, that should be covered in their master plan process. But I'll see if there's anything pending right now.
Thank you, Mike. And any other questions, comments? Tim, anything from Christine?
No, she just indicated that it's good that we're working with Holiday, and we're definitely committed to that. So
Yep. And I applaud the staff's effort to be sensitive and at the same time protect the integrity of the project. So, and to the owner, be willingness to cooperate and listen to all those concerns. So, great job.
Yeah, this is a significant improvement. It's like, why didn't we think of that at first? But I'm glad that it's happening now than later. I mean, it really is a good improvement.
Yep. All right. Just quickly before we move into a closed session, just a reminder that as far as calendar and upcoming events, that starting tomorrow through the end of the week, there's a conference in St. George for Utah League of Cities and Towns. It's the annual conference. We didn't do it last year because of COVID, but most of us will be there. I know Councilman Peterson and City Manager Tim Tingey, Councilmember Bracken, Mike Johnson, myself, and of course, I think Christine is traveling and Tally is, I think, out of the country, but traveling. So we'll be down there. I'm anxious to hear some of the concerns, especially the was it love, listen, and learn results. I think that'll be interesting to see that presented. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn the work session and move into a closed meeting to discuss litigation, property acquisition, and or the character and professional competence or physical or mental health of an individual. And then we will then, if I can do this, Shane, you can tell me, then we'll adjourn from that closed session. And at the same time, it will be adjourned from the work session, and then we'll move to our business meeting at 7 o'clock.
All right, I move that we close the open session and open a closed session for the items as the mayor described, and open the closed session to that.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Bracken. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
It's been moved by Councilor Bracken, seconded by Councilmember Peterson. Do I need to do a roll call on this, Shane?
Yes, that would be best.
Yeah, okay. I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken.
Yes.
And Councilmember Michael.
I don't see anything from her on that, but she's on the line for sure. And we stay here, am I correct? People just have to get off?
I thought we were closing. I thought we were going out and coming back in.
Oh,
We
okay.
have a different meeting. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
my understanding. Okay, but with that respect, and I will vote yes. And with Councilmember Bruce excused and Councilor Michael may give us a vote.
She's in favor, she just said.
Yeah, okay. She's in favor. All right. We are adjourned to the closed session. I'll see you at that. And